Next up are the SSL channel level controls. There's also a phase button and metering, some miscellaneous stuff in the lower right corner. Swooping down to the bottom of the plugin here, we've got a few different buttons and switches and knobs. We'll start with the phase button, reverses the phase of the signal going through it. And you always read in magazines, tip number 1 of recording drums, reverse the phase on the snare bottom mic. Doesn't always actually work, but in this case it works. This example, I got a 57 on the top and a AKG 451 on the bottom, and no phase was reversed during recording, so we get to do it now. I've got both channels soloed so we can hear the combination of the two snare sounds, and I'll flip the phase and we can hear it. So here we go. So that's not flipped, and here comes flipped. So it sounds like when it's not flipped, it cancels out a lot of the low end of the top mic. When we flip it, the two low ends combine better to make a stronger sound with better low end. So yeah, it's one of those cases where it makes a difference. Alright, we got a few more buttons here. I'll unsolo our snare top mic. We've got an analog switch, and that turns on and off the modeling of the analog circuitry on a real SSL console. This is probably my favorite part of the whole thing. These EQs and compressors, they sound alright. They're useful, and you can certainly boost mids pretty nicely with this plugin, but the real magic is when you turn this on, your boosting of high end doesn't get that shrill, cut right through you Pro Tools sound that every other EQ in Pro Tools has. This analog switch is just doing a great job of modeling on a real console. You don't, think twice about plus 10 at 8K. But in Pro Tools, boy, you sure think twice about that. It just doesn't often sound good. And this switch does all the magic of making it sound good. Interestingly, if you bypass the plugin, you bypass both the dynamics and the EQ, the analog modeling is still on. So you get the sound of just running your signal through an SSL channel with the stuff bypassed. The processing bypassed. It's not a true bypass unless you bypass it up here. So kind of an interesting thing to know. You can get an analog simulator out of this plugin without using the other features. Moving on from that, we have a gain meter, and we can adjust whether that's metering the input or the output. And we have a gain knob for the input and a gain slider for the output. Let's listen to that. So if we turn up the input gain, it compresses harder because we're exceeding the threshold by quite a bit more of an amount here by boosting by a lot. But we also clipped the plug-in. We got a red light on the input. We have an output fader as well. Here we go. So all this EQ boosting that we're doing is increasing the signal, even though our input to the plug-in is not clipping. We've got plus whatever this is here, 8.3 at 8.5K, and we got low end boosted and our compressor setting and that sort of thing. That's all leaving us with a little more volume than we came in with. Bypassed, unbypassed. Yeah, we're getting a lot more volume, and that's clipping the output of the plugin. We can fix that using this fader. That makes sure we return to the Pro Tools world unclipped. Other than that, we have the Waves logo and the Solid State Logic logo at the bottom. We've got these little meters. These meters are actually pretty cool. They tell you a few different things. This one is the position of the fader, and when I press the Option key or Alt key on Windows, that resets any control to its original position. You snap the knobs to the original position. It's a good shortcut to know. So if I pull this fader down, wherever I pull it down, I can Option click on it or Alt click on it to put it back to its original place. Then this little guy on the left tells you the maximum signal that this meter has seen. So here we go. It's seen that minus 11. On the output, it's seen 0.6, but it doesn't say minus 0.6. It's telling you, you better turn it down because we're plus 1.3 over 0. We've exceeded the 0 amount. So if I pull this guy back 1.3, that means signal leaving this plugin should just exactly hit 0. So we just not lighting the red light. That's pretty cool. Sending signal back at the maximum volume, if we're interested in that, without actually clipping. The waves plugin tells us how much headroom we have. So we just played that. We had 0.7 dB of headroom left. If the number's not negative anymore, that means you've exceeded the max. They must have saved a few bits over 0 there. If the clipping was really 0 at the top, then they wouldn't be able to tell how far over 0 you went, but somehow they've saved a few bits to tell you that you've gone over 0 by about X amount. A nice feature of all the Waves plugins.